The Politics program is brought to you, as always, by the folks who support us at patreon.com/JURY. Again, patreon.com/JURY. If you love this show and you want to get a version of it 3 days a week, then go ahead and support us at the $3 level. That is $3 a week, about the price of 1 cup of coffee a week. You will get not only this, the evergreen and free Politics Prime, but also our Politics headline editions Monday and Friday. That is it, as well as everything that all patrons get, including our Friday hype train and any bonus content that I produce throughout the week. It all goes to you guys, the Patreons. Check it out, patreon.com/JURY. But enough of talking about how we do the show. What do you say we just do the damn thing?
Politics, 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 politics.
Oh, man, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. My name is Justin Robert Young. This is Politics. And, you know, I'll tell you what, maybe Drake had it right. Everybody crapped on that album, but we got some views from the 6 today. The big headline-grabbing, nationally focused election in the Georgia 6. It was last night. It was the closest that we've gotten to national politics since Election Day. And sure, it was fairly shitty methadone, but oh, man. I loved it. I was watching it as we were prepping for the night attack last night. I was on all my websites. I was going to all the voting areas for each. Yeah, the Georgia 6, by the way, is composited from 3 different voting counties in Georgia: Fulton County, DeKalb County, and Cobb County, Georgia. Will you be serving hard time? It was very quick that you realized that there were some very specific breakdowns for John Laugh Your Ass Off, the Democratic challenger, if he were to win. He had to keep it close in Fulton County, Georgia, easily the most populous, but he was not expected to win. He had to minimize his losses in Cobb County, Georgia, and he had to turn out significantly in DeKalb. And initial returns look good for him. It looked like Fulton County was in his margin of error. Looked like DeKalb County was showing up and showing out for John. But then, well, as the sun set and day became night, it became more and more clear that Karen Handel would be the placeholder in the Georgia 6. Mind you, that seat is back up for grabs in 2018. So, like, before we get in, and we're going to spend the whole goddamn show talking about this election. Before we even get into this, let's please understand that whoever won, they would have had to run for that seat again in the election that this was supposed to be the ominous portent either way for. So they wouldn't have even been assured that seat in the 2018 midterm elections, which theoretically are either going to give us or not give us meaning that if the Republican majority in the House was to be it would have meant that whoever won would have to win that seat again. Elsewise, the Democrats would have a chance to get swallowed by that Republican majority anyway. And that's still the case. So the Democrats can look at that election last night, lose that election, and still come back in a year and a half and say, oh, yeah, okay, well, we came close. Let's just figure out how to do it again. So, now that we've understood exactly how silly this is, let's get very serious about it. Karen Handel winning is not a surprise. Now, it is a surprise if you expected different results based on Donald Trump winning. But historically, Republican wins the 6th congressional district of Georgia is the rule, not the exception. There are a million ways that we can dissect this, but let's not go away from that for right now. Let's understand that this was and is a Republican congressional district. Now, the reason why you would say, okay, well, this is a toss-up, A, because we saw a lot of polling that said so, but also because Donald Trump barely won. Donald Trump came within 1.5% of losing to Hillary Clinton in that district in the 2016 election. Now, Mitt Romney won by 20%. Why did Donald Trump come so close to losing? Why was Georgia so close to flipping? In large part because of that district. Not large part, in part because of that district. Because Republican strongholds were crumbling. Because in general, the Georgia 6th is filled with reluctant Trump voters. People who happily voted for Newt Gingrich, happily voted for Mitt, by the way, that's Newt Gingrich's old seat. Happily voted for Newt Gingrich as a Republican representative for their specific district, happily voted for Mitt Romney, but yet looked at Trump as, a Visigoth. They had no love. They had such little love for Donald Trump that they almost elected somebody that they no doubt revile. I mean, again, these people were Clinton haters before Clinton hating became cool. They were championing and re-electing Newt Gingrich while he was drilling up in that ass. And yet they almost elected Hillary. So you can understand where it's like, well, John Ossoff won that gangbang initial special election where there were 5 other Republicans running against 1 Democrat. And now in this runoff, he was polling better than expected. He was not expected to poll that well. However, we can't get too lost in all the details. Let's not get lost in the sauce. Let's understand the meat of this. This became a referendum on Donald Trump. And I don't know how that helped or hurt anybody. Because although Donald Trump is not popular in that area, John Ossoff was running as somebody who nationally was looked at as the bellwether for an insurgent Democratic Party. And that's a hard sell to a district that, again, has been so solidly red. So I am inclined to look at this, as I've looked at a lot of these special elections, as overperformances by Democrats as opposed to Democratic losses. Now, that was a lot more of an easy argument to make in the Wyoming special election and in the Montana special election. And it's a very good argument to make for the South Carolina special election, which, by the way, was way closer than it was supposed to be. That was also a 3-point win for the Republican, also happened yesterday, but that was polled to be like a 20-point win for the Republican. It is, in fact, a more interesting race than the Georgia one, but we're not going to talk about it at all. In fact, we're already done talking about it. Why? Because it ain't as famous. And that's what we're here. We are here to follow the heat and talk about what people are talking about. So, let's focus on some of the fun part. Donald Trump got all up in that ass. Oh, geez. Donald Trump, who, again, not particularly popular in the Georgia 6, decided to get very, very, very involved before the election started. He, hammered in some of the Republican talking points that Jon Ossoff did not live in the district, that Jon Ossoff is, to use an old political term, a bit of a stuffed shirt wiener penis. And he spiked the football last night when he tweeted, "Well, the special elections are over, and those who want to make America great again are 5-0. All the fake news, all the money spent equals 0. A lot of the talking points that I saw on the Republican internet yesterday was that Donald Trump did more with 2 tweets than he did, than the Democrats could do in the most expensive House election in history. Let that sink in. The most expensive House election in history. Not special election. House election. Everybody all around the country who's ever run for the House of Representatives, and there's been some famous people who have done it, this was the most money spent on a special election that's only going to put somebody in to that seat from now until another midterm election in 2018. Like, what in God's green earth are we even doing? Like, why not? If you're the Democrats, like, pardon me, and this is hindsight being 2020. Because if Jon Ossoff had won, then the media would have run with it. It would have been, we are here. Watch the swell because the wave is coming. But in hindsight, when you know you're running against history, when you're running against the long-standing behavioral patterns of those voters, why are you going to dump all that much money in there? In fact, I was listening to 538 earlier today, their special podcast about it. They were looking at the turnout results. It is highly likely that we will see more people turning out to vote for this election than we will for the exact same seat in 2018, when that representative will get more time with the seat. To me, that's insanely stupid. Why is that insanely stupid? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's insanely stupid because spending a lot of money means buying a lot of advertising. Buying a lot of advertising means you're going to make people in that district more aware than they would be otherwise. When you make people more aware of an election than they would be otherwise, you are trying to drive more voter turnout. So why, if you are the Democrats, would you want to drive high voter turnout in a district that has more Republicans than Democrats? Like, that blows my mind. Why not just say, hey, kid, congratulations. We'll give you all the free media you can handle. You got on the cover of New York Magazine. I mean, oh, God, here's the other thing, and this is just me reading the tea leaves. But was it just me, or could you just see, like, the Democratic Party faithful just nursing their boners for John Ossoff? Wait a minute. Young, white, male, and he can raise money? Oh, good. Let him take that seat until 2018. Because by 2018, he can turn it over to somebody else. Because we'll groom him to run for president. Oh. Codes from Home says, when you say Democrats, do you mean individual donors or the DNC? Both. Because individual donors are the ones who are actually given the money. The DNC is the one who tells them where the money should go. They can give individually to each person, but if the DNC steps in and talks to their mega donors and says, hey, look, it looks like we're spending enough money that, in fact, the more money we spend in the Georgia 6, the more that we are only oversaturating the media market. What do you say you guys spend some of this money up here in South Carolina? Looks like we're actually closer than some of the polls are showing based on our internal metrics. They could actually use a little bit more money. Is he old enough to run for POTUS? Says Strike It Rich 1. I don't know. But that's immediately, it's like you can just tell who the Democrats have a boner for. I mean, all political parties. This isn't just on them. Except Republicans, there's a little bit more of like a back alley fight with Republicans. Democrats, especially the establishment, they just love, look at him. Look at him. He says a million words and he can't be pinned down on a single one. Yeah. Resonates with the youth. Yeah. Right. Yeah, pal. Look at him. John Ossoff. Yeah. Yeah. The first Ossoff term in office. He's 30. He'd need to be 35. You're right. So he'd have to wait 2 terms. Well, that's fine, pal. Go ahead and keep him there. Let him run for a Senate seat. I mean, after all, he didn't live in the 6. You can run him anywhere, That's just my conspiracy theory. So Donald Trump is going to say, hey, look, they tried to get me, but if you come at the king, you best not miss. You have 5 shots. I counted 5, son. Your bullets, well, you ain't got no more of them. Now, I do buy the idea that this probably makes it more likely that within the next week and a half, obviously Mitch McConnell's going to bring ahead his new health care bill. And I think we will see, we'll see that. We will see a resurgent Republican Party who feels that, at least for now, their mandate is secure. America indeed wants to make America great again. Which, if that is the optics, you can only blame the Democrats. Not because they have the right ideas or the wrong ideas, but man, they made such a big deal about these special elections. Instead of just saying, hey, look, we had great candidates and we got a bunch of first-time candidates out there that got really good experience, and we came way closer than we should have based on historical averages in all of these areas. Folks, the wave is coming. What you are seeing is the swelling of the wave. Instead, it was, when are we going to win? When are we going to win? When are we going to win? Oh, let's run the 45 caliber man in Montana. Oh. Let's run this 30-year-old documentary filmmaker in Georgia. Oh. It just seems like there was a better way to message that. There was a better way to say, our message is resonating. We want to support these folks as much as they can, but let's not expect victory. Because why would you expect victory in those congressional areas? Because again, like, politics is not surprising. Like, when it is surprising, it's surprising for a reason. House elections are not surprising in general. They follow very predictable patterns. Just because more people are paying attention to politics now does not mean that, everything goes out the window. And this is what I caution everybody when it comes to the Trump stuff. Like that, let's understand how weird that election was. That was one of the weirdest presidential elections we have ever seen in modern political history, if not all of political history, considering Donald Trump won as somebody who did not serve a second in previous governmental offices or serve in the military. No one's ever done that before. So let's understand that there's a little bit of this that we can throw out the window, okay? Let's also understand that Hillary Clinton was deeply unpopular. Deeply unpopular. And even if you blame James Comey for writing that letter, even if you blame him for that, you have to understand that Hillary Clinton made her bed that got her to that position. So, yes, we are in roiling, tumultuous sea changes in some of our demographics. And yes, we saw the rise of certain demographics that were voting in droves for one party that didn't in another party. But at the end of the day, just because CNN's covering it doesn't mean that the laws of gravity for every political election changes. Republicans can still win the Georgia 6th, and they're the prohibitive favorite to do so. That being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the elements that I do think matter from how Karen Handel ran this race. Because if you are a congressional Republican running for your office in 2018, you might have seen a little bit of a blueprint here that you can run with. Like, to use a sports analogy, like sometimes in football when, there's like a team that's like really, 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 really good, and they're playing a team that's really, 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 really bad toward the end of the season. The good team's going to make the playoffs and the bad team isn't. So the bad team just kind of runs like some crazy gimmick stuff, because if they were really trying to make the playoffs, they probably wouldn't. But, what the hell? Might as well just try to scheme our way into a victory against a team that we know we're not as talented as. And all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, wait, the bad team's just throwing every down, and they're picking on this one cornerback. And now a better team watches that, and they're like, oh, wow. I didn't realize. I didn't know you could do that. And now the better team exploits that lesson learned. That's kind of like what happened here. Except Karen Handel, if part of the worry about Donald Trump affecting the 2018 elections was, well, how do you handle Trump? Karen Handel just told you how to handle it. You Karen handle it. How do you Karen handle it? Well, you really don't talk about Trump. Instead, you talk about the Democrats. Talk about Nancy Pelosi. You talk about, well, this is what's going to happen if they take back the House, if they take back the Senate. Not about Trump. Trump is power. Forget about who he is. Forget about the Russia stuff. Our party, the party that you voted for, if you're turning out your base, I'm speaking as a Republican. You say to other Republicans, the party you voted for your entire life is in power now. And we can get probably a solid 4 to 6 years of it if you just stick with us. Hold your nose. And we're going to help you hold your nose by not putting Donald Trump on the campaign trail. Because guess what? Donald Trump really doesn't, he's much obliged to do that. He doesn't like to talk to other people's fans. He likes to talk to his fans. He'll go out to some, rodeo grounds and just talk to Donald Trump fans. He doesn't even have to be in your state. He'll go to Ohio and Pennsylvania and upstate New York. You can run for your seat in any of these other places, right? He'll do him, you do you. Separate the power from the man. That was what Handel did. Here's what else she did. Use Mike Pence. Hey, there's not everybody in the White House do you feel fully objectionable about. In fact, I'll bet you even some of your liberal friends have said, I can't wait until Donald Trump gets resigns or gets impeached, because then we'll get President Pence. Now, let's not get crazy. Much like a closeted politician with a boy toy on the side, let's keep Pence hidden, Let's use Pence specifically for closed-door donor dinners. Why do donors give money? Because they want to feel close to power. So you bring power, but Pence can be a little bit more discreet about it. But then, here's where you do use Trump. On election day, you make sure that Donald Trump starts tweeting. Yeah, fire up everybody with all that tweet action. Trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers. Except this time it's a good thing for Donald Trump, for old DJT. And specifically, Donald, Prez, when you are tweeting about my race in 2018, what do you say you'd go ahead and just mention me in the end? In fact, just use my hashtag. Mostly just crap on the person that's running against me. Like you did for Karen Handel. Because Donald Trump's tweets the day of the election were all about Jon Ossoff. Let's see if we can bring these up. Oh, here we go. Yeah. I guess on the day of the election, Donald Trump tweeted, hey, go vote for Karen Handel. But this was his tweet over the weekend. Democrat Jon Ossoff, who wants to raise your taxes to the highest level and is weak on crime and security, doesn't even live in the district. Boom. Focus on my enemy. So even if my constituency hates you, Donald, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Man, it is really stupid to draw broad national conclusions on a very small part of the country. But if we were to draw broad conclusions based on a very small part of the country, they'd probably sound a little something like this. John Ossoff was an Icarus-looking MRFer. Yeah. Too close to the sun. And this is what I was getting at earlier. It's just the media was just way too in love with him. Oh. We're going to get to some emails a little bit later, but this is something that I heard from a lot of people in that area, is that ultimately the story for locals became enough with the ads, enough with the saturation. I mean, again, he's a 30-year-old. 2 years young, 3 years younger. How old am I? 3 years younger. Am I 34? 4 years younger than me. Jesus, I'm getting old. Who has never held political office before, and yet here he is on the cover of New York Magazine. The Trump hate weather vane. Will fury and heaps of Democratic cash be enough for John Ossoff, the 30-year-old political neophyte elected to Newt Gingrich's old seat this spring? And look at him. Oh, jeez. He's just getting his hair put into place by a lady's hand. He's looking back. He's got half a smirk. Just looks like he's just ready for that JFK machine. Yeah, just go ahead and make me into the man I need to be. Too much too soon. Like, he has some good polls. Win an election. Like, you got to have something going for you. I mean, hell, this man didn't even have a viral video like that iron worker who's running for Paul Ryan's seat. Like, at least he was a likable guy. Who really likes John Ossoff? He's just this, like, wet dream of establishment Democrats. Here's my other completely irresponsible, broad generalizations that I'm drawing from a very, very tiny sample of a congressional special election in Georgia. Democrats can't win on hashtags alone. You can't win on hashtag resist. You can't win on hashtag F Trump. You can't win on hashtag Trump. Can't do it. This has to be about ideas. And right now, you are in kind of a weird position. Because the hysteria about Donald Trump has been about everything that he can do, and yet he has done precious little that sticks. Aside from, like, nominate people that you don't like, but let's be honest. How many times has somebody from an opposite party nominated somebody that you either A, knew their name, or B, liked? Normally happens. Like, yes, they're specific, and yes, Betsy DeVos is literally the devil, yada, yada, yada. But aside from that, there's not a ton. Now, when the healthcare thing goes through, like, if the travel ban had not gotten smacked down from the courts because Donald Trump's Keystone Cop strategy has yet to work so far, then yeah, run against that. Run on what you want to do for that. But even then, John Ossoff got criticized a lot for not running on single-payer healthcare. And although Well, let me get to my third point because it kind of dovetails into the second one, and that's Bernie versus Clinton lives amongst Democrats. Because man, as soon as John Ossoff didn't win last night, oh, the wolves came out. Ha-woo! The Bernie bros were going for the hill dog's throat. Ah. Too milquetoast, too triangulation, too much money, not enough grassroots. Wouldn't put his name on raising minimum wage. Wouldn't take a stand on the issues that people care about. How are you expecting to mobilize a grassroots Democratic insurgency if you're not going to do the things that has motivated Democratic insurgency? Huh? John Ossoff, stuffed shirt, Clintonite, triangulating. Go back to that one part of the Keebler elf tree that subscribes to McSweeney's Quarterly. Anger. That's what I saw last night on my liberal Twitter. Liberal Twitter was angry. Oh, God. Tearing each other apart. And although I can see the point from the establishment side that, like, yo, this was not a district where, Bernie got his ass kicked by Clinton in this district with the Democrats there. So you should run somebody that's more like Clinton than Bernie in the Georgia 6th. But where I see the Bernie bro side is, yeah, but you got to stand for something. You got to stand for the path forward. Even if that path forward is vote for me, I'll impeach Trump, or I'll be a check on Trump, which John Ossoff did not run as. That was Nate Silver's point. Nate Silver's point is just run as, a never Trumper, somebody that a Democrat that appeals to Republicans that either didn't vote for Trump or voted for Trump with their fingers on their nose. And say, look, Karen Handel ain't going to say it because she doesn't want to piss him off. I'll be happy to piss him off. I'm a lot like you. But, and like you, I'm a little weary about this president. And I'm going to be a thing against him. Here's my other broad national conclusion that I've come to based on a very small sample size. Another thing that I read a lot today was, does money matter? Donald Trump won this race with a tweet. Oh, a couple tweets, just a few tippity tap, tap, tap on the Twitter, and next thing you know, $50 million of Democratic cash. You might as well throw it in a pile and light it aflame. Ha ha! MAGA, 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 MAGA. I don't think that that's really true. I don't think that Donald Trump really swayed that election one way or another. I think that Republicans win in the Georgia 6th. And, that's that. It's pretty simple. Like, money does matter. Although, like I said before, I don't know what the strategy behind like raising awareness on an electorate that is not in your demographic favor really does for you. So let me turn my my gaze here toward the Republicans, who, oh my God, they're just like DJ Khaled right now. Another one. Grateful. They don't want us to win, so we had to win again. DJ Khaled. But how about y'all understand this one? It took $20 million for the GOP to beat a reject from a Wes Anderson clone factory who doesn't live in the district. Guy who has never run for office, has never held office, running against somebody who was a part of the state government. And she won by 3 points. I understand that the hype around this was binary. Republicans win, let's pop champagne. Democrats win, let's pop champagne. Democrats lose, the wave is over. Republicans lose, the wave is coming. But let's understand this. That's way closer than it should be. Way closer than it should be. So let's get into the wave. Let's talk about that wave. Wither the wave.
It's the wave.
Because as I stand here on the bow of this boat, I do see pure glass. I see calm seas. I see no swells. I see no white caps. But I'll tell you this. Common sense, political common sense, says that it's very difficult for one party to win 3 terms in a row. So combine that with an unpopular candidate and somebody that had, some good instincts on where to push their electoral advantages, and Donald Trump wins the presidency. Common sense says that a special election in the Georgia 6th and Montana and Wyoming and South Carolina will go to the GOP. That's just common sense. So no matter what path we take to get there, common sense is that happens. But here's something else that's common sense. That the party that controls the White House, the Senate, and the House will lose one of those in the midterms. That's what's common sense. Voters in general don't like one party controlling all 3 electable phases of our government. That's historically what happens. And I've been trying to tell y'all, enjoy these special elections because they're very fun, but don't get too wrapped up in them. Because we got really wrapped up in the idea that there's no way Donald Trump could win, when common sense said he could. And we got really wrapped up in these elections when common sense said they were all kind of unwinnable for the Democrats. But I'll tell you what, for all those on r/the_Donald that are laughing, rolling on the floor, laughing. You know what I got to thinking today was that line from Roger Rabbit. Keep laughing. One of these days you're going to laugh yourself to death. So is the wave dead? I don't think so. I think we are still looking at a very, very, very contentious, and my money would be successful 2018 for the Democrats, just based on history alone. But the surest way that we can tell that is by looking at a very specific kind of poll. But enough. I mean, somebody told me again this week, that I've been mentioning the Gold Club in Atlanta, which of course is defunct. I am well aware that the Gold Club is no longer a functioning strip club in the ATL. But I believe there might be one called the Diamond Club. So, what do you say we head on over there? Because, folks, it's Wednesday. We just came off a special election. So let's go ahead and get into a poll. Dance, 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 dance. This is an economist YouGov poll. Taken from the 18th of June to the 20th with 1,277 registered voters. It is a blank ballot, Republican versus Democrat poll. Meaning that without knowing who's running, what party do you want to vote for in the 2018 elections? Stepping first to the stage with 35%, we have the Grand Old Party, the Republicans.
Get on the floor if you got that booty.
And with 38%, we have the Democrats. Come on, ride that donkey, donkey. Come on, ride that donkey, donkey. Come on, ride that donkey, donkey.
That booty.
That is a 3-point spread for the Democrats, ahead of the Republicans on the generic ballot poll. Where are the others? We don't care about the others. Here's the weird thing, though. This is the largest sample that we've had on this kind of poll in a while, and it is the closest that we have had this kind of poll for a while. Previous polls have had the Democrats up 10, up 5, up 8, up 4, and up 7. So only up 3 is certainly the kind of sign that Republicans want to see the day after the wave might have died. All right. It didn't die. Spoiler alert, it didn't die. There's still going to be, and also, like, what the fuck? Like, what are we going to talk about from now until 2018? We got a couple emails on this election that came in last night. Some views from the 6. Mark writes, having grown up in and most recently moved back to the Georgia 6, I thought I would share a few thoughts on this special election. Number one, the reality. I'm not sure anyone should have believed that this district would really flip when over the last 10 years it has been staunchly Republican and sent Republican congresspeople to D.C. by a margin usually exceeding 20 points. The fact that the Clinton-Trump numbers were so close is more a likely reflection of just the anti-Trump sentiment more than anti-Republican. Election fatigue. Despite the relatively short election cycle, the bombarding of residents with political ads was obnoxious. That became as much the talk of the election here in the district. While it may have helped Ossoff in the beginning, people got fed up with it and seemed to actually work against him toward the end. And 3, advertising windfall. The local TV stations, websites, even mobile games made out like bandits. They were finding every nook and cranny to push through ads. I wonder how much the 2018 elections will go towards supporting economies in depressed areas, no matter who wins, might actually affect might actually help Trump. Well, I don't know, because it's mostly going to go to media people. I will say, I think number 2 is probably the biggest for me. Just that, why do you want to raise voter turnout and make this the end-all, be-all in an election where there's more Republicans than Democrats? You got me. Javier writes, the Georgia 6 unravels the wave theory by a lot. This was the best chance the Dems had to take a seat, and the needle moved by 3 points in a district that wasn't a huge Trump fan. That's a painful loss no matter how it's spun. Perhaps what we've seen in Kansas, Montana, and South Carolina is a mobilized Democratic voting base while the GOP voters are staying home since a win is a foregone conclusion for the Republicans. Well, I here's something that I want liberals and Democratic voters to understand. It doesn't matter how much you say the Republican Party is Donald Trump right now. Republican voters don't look at it like that. And you can put your head in the sand and keep saying that over and over and over again, or you can understand the nuances of this relationship and try to take advantage of it. And I think that Ossoff tried to do that, but he got a little too cute. And ultimately, I think that, listen, it looked like a first-time political campaign blown up by 50 because it had so much money. Let's get into some non-Georgia 6 emails that came in. Chris writes, Irish Chris in Japan. Been a while, but I had a question bubbling up in the back of my brain, and I think the foam just came to the top. Okay, forget this terrible metaphor. What I'm wondering is how you square your distaste and general lack of interest in the whole Trump-Russia conspiracy business with the glee you seem to take in the pre-election of just how much mileage Trump and the Republican Party in general got out of the whole private email controversy. He puts controversy in quotes. That there was an issue that was very much a manufactured controversy that was clearly going to lead nowhere, and yet it remained one of the most dominant attack lines in the election campaign. I'm not someone who sees you as a super partisan figure for either of the main parties, but it does seem like you have much less leniency and tolerance when it comes to corruption conspiracy narratives emanating from the left, even when they are coupled with crazy antics like the sudden firing of Comey. Maybe you are compensating for your overall liberal outlook, but it seems like you operate something of a double standard. I'm sure you've never been accused of that before. Then, again, maybe I'm just misremembering. In pre-election, you were also railing against how often Trump and co. brought up the email scandal. Genuine question because I just might have forgotten due to the long fog of time. And by the way, I say all these above as somebody who's agreed with you that some of the members of Trump's campaign might have had some questionable leaks with Russian contacts, but I'm highly skeptical that the big man himself was directly involved in anything or that the email leaks were in any way coordinated by his team. Putin doesn't need much help to run a propaganda war. I also agree that a lot of what is happening at the moment is ultimately political theater, but here I think it's worth remembering just how much political theater can sway minds and tarnish reputations, especially when said theater is all over the media. Trump and his cabinet definitely now have a haze of suspicion hovering around them relating to foreign influence, and I'd be amazed if that doesn't move the needle for some of those that have previously voted for them. The diehards won't care, but Trump wasn't elected on the vote of the 62 million in r/the_Donald. I guess whether the wave appears will be the ultimate signal, but even if it fails to materialize, I'm curious why you focus on the Russia connection as being more problematic than other similar controversies that you seem to enjoy. Chris, Irish Chris in Japan, thank you so much. So, here's the difference in how I focused on one, not the other. There was a finish line, a close finish line, wherein the email controversies were magnified. So when you're focusing on a presidential election campaign and every 24-hour cycle matters, everyone that is affected by that controversy just matters a lot more than how much coverage we're giving the Donald Trump stuff. You know, how much did anybody care about Eric Holder and the Fast and the Furious scandal when Obama ran for re-election against Mitt Romney? Not a lot. Now, if that had happened right when the election was going on, it would have mattered a lot more. And a lot of more people would have paid attention to it. Meaning, I don't think that we're still going to be looking at this Russia thing in the same way by the time that Donald Trump runs for re-election, assuming he's not impeached or resigned. So it matters to me a little less as somebody who primarily focuses on elections as opposed to coverage. So, with that being said, I was probably more fascinated. The things that I am fascinated with on both sides, rather, are the self-harm elements. To me, I found the email controversy very, very damning because it highlighted all the negatives that Hillary had before anybody knew about it. She's secretive. She lies. She hides. All she cares about is getting through by the legal skin of her teeth. She doesn't care about anything she says. It highlights the fact that anything she says to us is untrustworthy. That's what that email controversy highlighted. And I think it did great damage to her. There's not, aside from Donald Trump being a megalomaniac blowhard, which I don't think anybody would question. I don't know exactly what in that Russia investigation ties back to specific negatives about him. In fact, the specific negatives about him, he's a first-timer, he's in over his head, he doesn't know what he's doing, are arguments being made in his exoneration. He fired Comey because he's angry at Comey. Not because he has some master plan and Comey was sniffing too close to the truth. So, that, although, again, the thing that I'm fascinated the most about the Trump thing is that he does harm himself. Like, why fire Comey? It makes no sense. Like, we don't know exactly what he was working on, but it's like, or if you are going to fire Comey, then lay out some messaging about it before you do it. Let everybody get their story straight. So you're not, getting pissed off at your deputy attorney general because you tell him to write one reason to fire Comey and then you don't stick to the talking points. But thank you for the email and keep writing in. Waffle Avocus writes, I have a lingering questions on the interviews with Comey and the old man Sessions. Namely, what did they have to do with this investigation? To my understanding, the special investigator works outside of Congress and Senate, what have you. So, these interviews serving any purpose other than one big-ass dog and pony show where McCain can team up with Sessions while Harris made him look like a senile old man? How does this play into the ongoing investigation of it all? I'm lost in this. Well, technically there's two investigations. There is the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is looking into interference by Russia. And then there is a special investigator, which is Robert Mueller. So Robert Mueller is conducting his own investigations for which there will be findings. The Senate Intelligence Committee is doing their own thing. The fact that there is mission creep, and now we are no longer talking about the specifics of how Russia coordinated with Trump, and now we are focusing on obstruction of justice, is exactly what you said. The dog and pony show element of it all. This is about people getting on MSNBC and CNN and Fox News and, being heroes to their constituency. It's every little greedy lizard trick that I love about politics. They're just little weasels, and they just want to get in front of the big hot lights of the TV. Love me, love me. I'm saying what you agree with. Matthew from the liberal but oddly conservative Reno, Nevada. I understand why you glossed over the shooting at the baseball practice. That asshat deserves as little recognition as possible. Where I begin to take issue is when you call him a lunatic. He may have come to a very rational decision that was internally consistent with his own context at the least. Were the IRA lunatics? What about the PLO or the Weather Underground in the 70s? Or how about when a bunch of backwards hicks start shooting at their betters in 1776? The automatic assumption that violence is never warranted is naive. I do not believe that our system is so broken that we should start a violent uprising, far from it. But others do think that it's gotten that bad. It is a nuanced issue with infinite shades of gray that leads some to shoot now and others to wait until it appears that there's a more solid shade of black. Heck, even Paul Ryan has voiced his support for the Second Amendment for the purpose of the citizenry overthrowing a tyrannical government in some of his tweets. Yeah, and Paul Ryan has too, and that is very often a argument for the Second Amendment. It's not the right to bear arms is not for hunting, it's to preserve the fact that the government can't subjugate us. He's a lunatic, and here's why. We can talk about a million shades of gray. To me, that shade of gray is crazy, and I understand that there are some people who can come to that conclusion. To me, it is a violent leap in logic to leap to violence. We are not substantially in a different place than we were when Obama was there. We are not substantially in a different place when we've had other irresponsible presidents in office, even at its worst, if you want to look at it at its most dystopic. There is no reason in a sane mind, in my opinion, to shoot on a defenseless elected official. And even those who use violent metaphors, I believe, should not be lumped in with somebody who literally takes that to heart and fires on somebody. To me, that is the sign of a disturbed mind. I can understand where people can get there metaphorically. I can understand where people can get there, in an abstract. But I'm sorry. To try and murder multiple elected officials, to me, is beyond reasonable, and it is beyond logical, and it is lunacy. IMO. Sean writes, thanks for the great response to the baseball shooting, the baseball practice shooting, rather. It was quite perfect. I think it helped me to come to a better conclusion about how I felt about it. My fear is that will lead to an increased presence of firearms at political rallies. Those that believe that a good guy with a gun is the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun may start carrying more often. If I learned anything from my mom, a professor of sociology, about guns, it is the presence of firearms escalates situations faster than anything else. Interestingly, my mom's House Representative, Chris Collins, immediately attacked the Democrats and their supporters for this attack. He has since walked back that response as being in the heat of the moment, which really goes to show that his default stance is us versus them. He has then stated that he will begin to conceal carry when in his home district. Every Tuesday morning, my mom goes into Chris Collins's Geneseo, New York office with a group of his constituents. Their main goal is to get a town hall-style meeting with the representative. I don't believe he has been seen in the Geneseo office since the inauguration. I am a bit concerned for my mother's safety while she exercises her right to free speech and tries to establish a dialogue with her representatives to Congress. I think his response to concealed carry is an absolute absurd response to yesterday's events. I think his trapping on a firearm as a result of solidarity, as a result of a solitary, hopefully lunatic, is indefensible and doesn't send any form of positive message of reaching across the aisle or even listening to those he serves and disagrees with. Sean, I see your point. I have a degree of empathy for him. If somebody started shooting podcasters, I would probably react in ways that I wouldn't react if people were shooting other professions. I believe in a right to a Second Amendment. I believe that we are so far away from each other on a dialogue on it that we can't even begin to sketch out common sense gun legislation. In fact, we're so far apart that a Democrat saying the phrase common sense gun legislation is taken to mean a synonym of take away all of our guns immediately. I don't think that that helps. I think that guns are a part of America. I think there are too many of them out there for us to really do much about it. I think that guns are a regionally different concept. I think that people in rural areas tend to think of guns far different than people in city areas think of guns. And I have tremendous questions about the legislatability. The legislatability? Is that even a thing? The ability for us to legislate, like the existence of guns. I think better ways of keeping them out of bad people's hands, certainly something that we need to look more into. However, while I see your point, Sean, and I hope that your mom and the other constituents are able to get a town hall meeting with their representative, I don't think that this point needs to be escalated any further. Whether or not this man, your representative or your mom's representative up in Geneseo, which I think is upstate, right? Little CNY, loving it. Whether or not he does conceal carry, I think you should take the first step in not escalating it any further by saying that he should not have said that he is going to conceal carry. Let him make that personal decision. If he wants to make a political issue about it further, then an immediate kind of reaction, then you can criticize him for that. But I would say, if your point is let's not escalate this issue any further, then I think you would do the best way to get to that would be you taking the first step. Folks, you can email in to us, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Again, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Music has always been provided by Valesco and Trop Killers. You can follow me at Justin R. Young everywhere and download archived episodes of this show at bonerwars.com. Folks, some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. I heard one the other day that talked about politics. But this one right here, the only one that talks about all three. We will see you guys next week.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.